big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. As you can see, this is no regular showing as I come to you straight from the headquarters of Mercedes-Benz in Chakan, Pune. And I'm here today to discuss everything luxury in the automobile space. So who better than the Managing Director and the CEO of Mercedes-Benz to give me a lowdown of everything luxury and how business in the luxury space is booming in India. Well, without further ado, let's go right in and meet Santosh Iyer to take this conversation further. Hi, Santosh. Finally happy to meet you in person and
Thanks,
actually...
for joining us, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. And this lovely, beautiful Mercedes plant in Chakan in Pune, first time. And I'm so glad we decided to do it on location.
Nice. I think we are proud of this facility. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I know that Mercedes-Benz has finished 30 years in the country. I also know that you finished 15 years with the company. So you are as good as a part owner of this journey of Mercedes. It's been a long ride, and I'm sure because of your cumulative experience, you've seen the luxury market, the Indian consumer kind of change over the last 3 decades or so, right? So, Santosh, the conversation today really will pivot around many aspects of business, but I want to start with first congratulating you on your record sales, I believe, in 30 years for the first time. So if you can just give me those figures so that my audience has some perspective.
Yeah, I think firstly thanks, and yes, we are completing 30 years. It's a matter of great pride and honor for me to be with this 3-pointed star. In terms of numbers, we have been leading the market for many years now, and even this year, the first half of the year, we follow Jan to June, for which we have announced the results. We are again, it has been the best ever year in our history, more than 9,200 cars sold. And even if you ask me about the outlook, we are still confident of a double-digit growth under these market conditions. So I think there is a strong love and desirability for the 3-pointed star in India. And me and my team's job is to just take care of this love and affection and then see how do we take care of the customer demand.
So, from let's say a COVID year or the COVID years, right, where the entire auto market and of course, if you look at luxury in particular, everything had a very grim outlook. For that to actually bounce back and for you to have these record 9,000 odd units in the first half of 2024. Santosh, what are the triggers? What do you attribute your record sales to?
I think, as I said, firstly is the love for the brand. The brand has always been desirable, and even pre-COVID and for history now. But what has happened is also a lot of changes have happened in the buying consumption and, the consumer thinking on luxury. Pre-COVID, the tendency was there to a bit more save. I would say not indulge as much. But now when we see, there is a lot of young customers who want to now already start enjoying. They are ready to take risk. Plus, the infrastructure has improved a lot. In these COVID years, one thing the government did was not stop spending on infrastructure. So the kind of roads that have been built in India, the connectivity between cities, so a lot of intercity travel, and then of course a booming stock market, lot of startup ecosystem. So all of this actually funneling into more, getting and indulging, I would say, because I keep saying, what Coco Chanel said, luxury starts where necessity ends. So Mercedes-Benz cars are not for going from point A to point B. Many cars can do it, but we do it better, and we do it in a way and manner with a lot of safety, a lot of technology there.
And a lot of bragging rights.
Exactly. So in that sense, yes. And also I think there is a change in the generation. If you see now in the last, what I've observed now, the newer generation, I would say now the 45 to 50, if you see the priority was housing. First let me buy a house, then I buy a car. But today's younger lot, they have a house. Parents have not only built one house, they have also have the second and the third house for kids. So these kids now, when they start earning and they are into some big companies or they are into entrepreneurship stint, they don't mind then straight getting into indulging. And it starts from bags to watches, and then of course cars as well when it comes to luxury consumption.
Sure. A couple of rejoinders to what you've just told me. While I agree the government has done a fantastic job with highways in the country, I think the state of affairs within cities is a mess. Any city you look at, Pune, Bombay, Bangalore, we travel on shoots regularly. You do, I'm sure. You travel to all these cities. It's a mess. And the second part, when a person buys a luxury car, of course, you have to be of that stature, to want to own that. If you're doing this everyday commute, right, and you have a new car, swanky new, let's say Mercedes-Benz, if I'm looking at the kind of traffic on the roads, I think I'll have a heart attack if looking at the bikers and, you know, the rickshawalas and the way they're coming. So, do you think that is an impediment to actually the luxury car sales in the country?
Actually, it's the other way around, Sonali.
Okay.
Let me tell you. So, you know, for intercity travel is a different use case, which I mentioned. You know, today Delhi to Jaipur, people do it by cars, not by flights.
Sure.
On the by luxury cars as well. But on the other way, now within the city, most of our customer base have drivers during the week, and they drive themselves during the weekend. So when you have a driver, what you need in a car is a low NVH, quieter cabin, better suspension, so that the comfort is there in terms of drive, and you can also use the travel time to work or to consume, I would say, content in a much more peaceful environment. Today our cars are loaded with 13 speakers, Burmester surround sound system, to ambient lighting, to you feel more relaxed actually when you get out of the car after a stressful day of work. So if I have to take it positively, on the other side, I think the car, it's a much more compelling reason to own a Mercedes-Benz, you know, in these traffic conditions.
Okay.
I spend on an average in the evening 1.5 hours, 2 hours. I have already started mapping. Morning it takes me 1 hour. I have my breakfast in the car on my way to work, and when I am back home, I have my calls, I have my meetings. But it's a quiet cabin, and I make the best out of it with the car.
Sure. Get it. Okay, fair enough. Your second point being, you know, this sudden realization post-COVID with most consumers saying that, you know, let's just not save. Let's also spend and live our lives because we don't know when it will end. And so the wanting to live better has become a priority, of course, well within your means. And the fact that you said that the new generation, Gen Z, or a little bit older, maybe, you know, younger millennials, also find the need to kind of have ownership of what we would have called unnecessary item, right? Which is a generational gap. Also because their basic security is in place.
Exactly.
But these young people who buy these cars, these are obviously people who don't have to work for a salary to be affording, because who can afford amongst the young generation who've not even managed a steady 10 years, you know, innings in your career to actually afford this car? So which
That's an interesting. Let me say, this is where diversity kicks in. The number of women coming into the workforce. So today's younger couples, because two people are working in a household.
Correct.
That adds to the income layer.
Yes.
And when both of them are working really hard, you know, it's a Monday to Friday, a lot of work, then they also need to then start splurging. And then that is where we can see, when it comes to the salaried class, most of them are double income households. Both the husband and wife doing extremely well in their professional career, and then they buy a car. And now the other thing is, earlier the male member would buy a Mercedes-Benz and some other car would be. It's not the case no longer today. Today both of them have Mercedes-Benz cars, or sometimes we can even see the spouse the other way around, where she is maybe earning even better, or she just wants it, and she's also purchasing a Mercedes-Benz. So the number of women buyers have doubled.
Really?
It used to be 7 to 8%, it's 15% today of our sales.
Wow. So that's actually quite heartening to hear. I also hear some of your other micro growth engine centers would be tier 2 cities now, where your focus is. Is that enough of a demand you're seeing that it can compete with the metros? Or metros still remain your dominant areas of purchase for luxury cars such as yours? Or
So, see, if you look at, Sonali, if you look at metros, you know, the two metros contribute 45% of the sales, and 70% Bombay, Delhi, and 70% of sales comes from the balance couple of metros that we have. But if I look at the passenger vehicle market, it's a 4.3 million car market. 48% of that sales comes from tier 2, tier 3 towns, whereas for us it's hardly 15-16%. So the future, if you look at why shouldn't these markets also start consuming luxury, why shouldn't they also purchasing cars, and we can already see that happening. The interesting thing there is, even these markets are not coming from entry luxury. They are straight away buying AMGs, Maybach, S-classes, GLSs. So it's not a trend where we can see that we call them mini metros, not the tire based classification.
Sure.
But these places also you can see an equally good consumption for top end luxury cars, and I think that shows that the structure of the market is better. Consumers are not just trying to buy a luxury car, but they are buying real high-end cars, and there is affordability. But in these big, these towns yet, I think it's the second generation, third generation which has gone abroad to study now. They are in Europe and US, they will be driving our cars. When they come back, then they demand to their parents, grandparents, now I want to continue the lifestyle.
Sure.
So it's a matter of time, but surely we will see that penetration going up. So luxury car total penetration is 1.2% of the total market. So total market at 4.3 million, we are at 48,000 cars last year. Tier 1 like Bombay, Delhi, they are already at 2.5%. And the Tier 3, as so-called mini metros, they are at 0.4. So if you see the potential that if these mini metros starts consuming luxury and if they come up, and of course the metro cities now the penetration goes up from 2%. So for sure, I think India has a strong potential with the economic development for sure.
Yeah.
And I again go back to the diversity topic. I think one thing is certain, for the country to grow, you need inclusive workforce. And only when we have the other 50% also participating in creating economic value, then the country would grow. And that's why I think the focus on diversity, not just for corporate India, but in general, to include them in the workforce directly has a correlation to all the businesses.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, heartening to know. So you're saying on an average, just for my understanding and my audience understanding of the luxury car market, right? So you're saying about what, 46,000 to 50,000 units?
Last year was 48,000 units. I would say 2023 combined all of them put together, we did close to 17,500 odd cars last year, leading the market. And if you take the percentage, 48,000 by the 4.2 million car market, total passenger vehicle, it's 1.1% to be very precise.
Okay.
So that's the size of the luxury car market. Okay. But that is in terms of volume. But when you look at price, the average selling price for us is close to 90 lakhs.
Sure.
So now when you multiply that with the number of cars, we would be one of the top players in India when it comes to GST contribution to the government or for paying taxes, because the top line is quite high considering the average ticket size is at least 8 to 10 times higher than the normal passenger car market.
You know, you've also done a business transformation bang in the middle of COVID, with your whole dealership model.
Yeah.
And now you believe in going direct to consumer, and that was a strategic call you took during the hard years, right? I want to know what triggered that thought process, why you thought it would work, because the traditional model is still, the norm in the country and is what people are comfortable with. So to take that risk of pissing off, let's say, your dealers, right, or for a lack of understanding in terms of education to your customers, saying now come directly to us, and the dealers not having the incentive to kind of price their own pricing and all the added perks that the dealer gets. How did you think this through, evaluate, do a SWOT analysis and actually implement it? And what has been, candidly speaking, the outcome of it?
Well, so let me go back to the time, in 2019-20 when we were evaluating, COVID struck us, dealerships were locked down, a lot of stocks at dealers. And I am a big believer that never let a crisis go waste, because I think crisis is a time to drive transformation and business change. And at that point of time, we said that as a luxury brand in India, if we operate exactly the same model of a mass market brand, how will we transform customer experience? Now let me just explain what is happening, and I think all your channels are covering today stocks, inventory, dealers are crying, profitability is a problem, and those you don't hear from Mercedes-Benz dealers, they are much more happier. And the reason is that the automotive industry structure is that you push sales to dealers, and then at some point of time they will push to the customer.
Sure.
So if a dealer has 100 cars, if he has the red car, he will then somehow convince the customer the red is the best color for you, and then the customer has no option. It's a discount based steering, so there is no explanation of the product, there is no focus on service. So you can have CSI scores, NPS scores, but as long as the dealers are not compensated and they don't make money out of sales because they are only discounting and paying to the banks, you never can transform customer experience. So for us, we said what will be the game plan to transform customer experience, and then...
But before you get to that, why did you want to transform the customer experience? You were doing all right.
See, we are, I would say, an expensive luxury brand.
Yeah,
and why would so there is one comes from the product, because the product is absolutely worth the price that we are charging on. And then second, also the residual value, the resale value of our cars are significantly higher. But at some point, most of our customers also want experiences. They want to go beyond product, they want to experience our dealerships, our customer events. And again, when it comes to service, because you buy a car once but you maintain it for 3-4 years, And if your business model says that don't make money in sales, make money in service, that's a flawed approach to start with. And I keep looking at the Indian automotive industry and also worldwide, that's a business model. Most of the partners don't make money in selling cars or bikes, they make money in servicing. So when that happens, the customer is, I can't call it ripped off, but to a large extent, you know, the focus is now, let me make money here when the customer is coming back. So if I have to now differentiate us as a brand when it comes to brand positioning, and this was the only option, that we take over the sales bit, we take over the inventory, we take over all the costs, let the dealer make some good decent amount of money in sales. Fixed, but the only reason why somebody should, so in most of the cities in India we have multiple partners, be it Bombay, Delhi. So the only reason one should buy from dealer A and not from dealer B is service. So they compete on service, not on discount. Whereas in the traditional model, they compete on discount. We also give discounts, but it's the same across. Second, for an omni-channel journey, because today online is it's a very important channel.
Yeah.
What price you see online and what you get offline has to be seamless, else the customer loses trust. And here, this model allows us to have a seamless experience because there is no negotiation. It's a very transparent model for the customer. And last topic about dealers, I think they, I can proudly say they may be the happiest dealers now because you don't see them crying on stocks. They don't have no stocks now because everything is with us. They are profitable, and I think they now realize the value of customer experience because now to compete, they need to ensure why. So they are now paying attention to Google Store reviews. They are paying attention to customer feedback. Referrals form 60% of our sales, so they are now trying to take care of the customer. I think this change in customer centricity, all brands talk customer experience.
Yes.
But if you really want to deliver, you need to change the business model. You cannot just incentivizing, I will give you X money for your CSI. Then I think our partners are smart enough to get that score, but the customer is still unhappy.
Sure.
So we still have a way to go. I am not saying that we have already achieved the best level. I think for me, the biggest challenge and for my team is how does this narrative go forward even further? How do I change and increase the gap to me and my competitors on customer experience?
Yes.
Because if that happens,
yes,
I think sales is an outcome and that's not the core target for us.
Santosh, you're one of the few men, I would say, not men, few people, you know, in the industry who has managed a very successful pivot from marketing, even communications, to being, you know, the top dog in the company. So, most marketers I meet kind of struggle. They get kind of, you know, typecast and stuck in that little box, and they live their lives as marketers and die as marketers. Very few can do that. You've done it, which is why I want to ask you. And you've also, before your 15-year stint, you've been around, right? Marketing to your target group vis-a-vis, let's say, a mass market brand or a premium brand is a completely different ballgame.
So first let me answer the first topic, that why, you know, I made it here also, and this is a piece of 2 cents to marketeers.
Of course.
That, you know, marketing is not a revenue function, it is a cost function.
Absolutely.
Some brands realize it's an investment function, not only a cost, because you invest on the brand and then maybe revenues follow. But there is a maturity level in many companies which they look marketing as cost, and therefore if marketeers remain in marketing, they are seen as cost centers. They need to also sometimes go to the dark side, generate revenue, and that brings them closer to the real customer, and that actually helps them back to do better marketing, better communication and better practices. So I think my advice to a lot of marketeers also in our organization, always jump on the other side. It's a bit of risk because spending is not easy, I won't say, but still generating revenue is a different ballgame. So that's one thing that you know, one needs to be conscious of, and one needs to be really thinking of how do I now make the transition to jump there. The second part, what difference? Fundamentally in marketing, I think basics are same. You know, we can keep discussing many things, but as long as you keep the customer in the center of whatever you do, it doesn't change. Of course, our customer behavior, their patterns, their consumption of media may be a bit different than compared to what others do. But then that's the nature of the beast. Once you understand your customer and do everything around them, like we change the retail model. So is it a sales steering? Answer is no. Is it a marketing way of doing it?
Maybe.
Maybe. Because this is, if you want to transform customer experience, no point in giving full page ads saying, you know, now I am taking care. You know, I give examples to my dealers. You know, there are a lot of banks in India who come up with emotional ads. Come to my branch and there is somebody, tears falling down the eyes. But when you really go there, you don't find it. And that's the disappointment. So marketing starts failing. Now you can blame the branch guys, but they are not bought into your story. They are not culturally bought into your story. And that transformation, I think, as marketeers will also wear the other hat. And they feel that with the campaigns, they need to do cultural transformation, really change a business model maybe. Then you get a better delta increment to what you are doing than just campaigns.
Well, I want to delve into this a little bit more with you, Santosh. But before we do that, can you just take me for a walk around your brilliant facility?
Sure, please join me.
Yeah, I'll follow you.
Well, Sonali, welcome to our Customer Experience Center.
Yes, and given that we were discussing customer experience and what you're trying to do, I think it's the perfect location. So as I was telling you, Santosh, I had a few doubts about marketing to your cohort, right? You can't do the regular PVCs. You cannot do the new age viral videos that marketers want to do on Instagram and Facebook and as you know it. So obviously your marketing would have to be a lot more nuanced because your customer media selection and what they get influenced and their exposure levels are much higher. So how do you ensure that, in this luxury car market, the go-to automobile is Mercedes?
Well, firstly, the entire marketing team, including our agencies, they have a very clear mandate that we are just custodians of the brand. Because this brand has been built over 140 years. Painfully, we invented the car, continue to invent it, and we will reinvent it. So we need to be clear, we are just custodians of the brand, and we have to be responsible to ensure that this brand continues to be desirable. So that's the first brief that we tell our teams internally to be conscious of. Secondly, when I come to media, media, yes, our customers are also read print, they also go to television or be on Instagram. But what kind of content you create? I think that content and the communication piece is important, and I think that's critical. And then there is a role of us and a role of our retailer. So as far as Mercedes-Benz India is concerned, our communication is more on the product or on the brand in terms of what we do. We use assets coming internationally as well as we make some content here. But when it comes to retailer, they are more focused on sales, so they come up with offers or programs and others. So we have clearly demarcated what we can do and what they can do. But one thing which is common is, again, coming back is customer experiences. So our customers, they want Instagrammable experiences to start with. Something which normally money can't buy, accesses to events, first to be in an event, first to be in a concert, first to be in a place, first to be done that. And that gives them a certain bragging right. And not only, it's about they have achieved, right? So they have been there, done that. So if you now try to do what, some of the credit card companies try to do, I don't think we will be half as successful. So our entire focus is then what makes that experiences very different and how do we plug the brand in as well. Because sometimes you can take them to the best concerts or have premier shows, but then if the brand is not integrated, then it's just a nice CRM activity, but it doesn't give anything more.
I'm bustling with questions, so I'll start with, globally you have a very large portfolio. Yeah. How many of that is available in India?
I would say most of them, whatever is available in right-hand drive options will be available in India because we get everything here, around 25 odd car models. 25 car models. 10 of them we make in our plant here in Chakan.
As in you assemble
including them? Electric, we assemble them. Yeah, we manufacture. We also have a lot of component suppliers here, including engines and so on and so forth. So we have a large ecosystem in Chakan. So we have developed this ecosystem over the years. So we source parts and components also from them. And of course, it's a assembly setup that we do here in this plant. We have a paint shop as well. So it's a the full works, I would say. And 95% of our sales in India are from locally produced cars.
Is it because it's also cheaper than, let's say?
Of course, the CBUs, as we call it, attract a higher duty. But then there are customers like the G-Wagon, where we started our shoot, they just want that car. And that car is produced only in one plant in the world, which is in Graz in Austria. So we cannot produce those cars anywhere else. And customers are ready to pay for it and enjoy those experiences as well. So the other example is you were asking about CBU pricing. We are recently introducing the EQS SUV Maybach.
Yes, congratulations on that launch.
Thank you. And here we have gone that extra mile to ensure that the pricing we make it a bit more aggressive, because for us it's an electric car. Consumers need to first experience the Maybach in an electric form, which none would have done till now, and for that they need to take a leap of faith. And for that we said, yes, let's go much more aggressive on the price, let them experience the product.
Give me your pricing for the understanding of my audience, who pretty much are your potential customers.
Well, you know, the GLS Maybach, which is in a combustion engine format, there the on-road price is 3.7 odd crores. But this EQS SUV Maybach that we got in the EV will be starting 2.25, going up to 2.5 odd crores with different combinations and set, you know, we have first class seats in the car as well. So customers can configure paint options to different configurations. So it's significantly aggressively priced to get customers to experience EV in a Maybach avatar.
Santosh, I asked you about your product portfolio in India because, you know, given that, you know, look at last year's figures of the entire luxury car auto market, you said it is 48,000 odd, right? And I would say the growth is also not, if you haven't reached that inflection point yet.
Far away.
Far away, right? The growth, it's a long story ahead. And while you say double-digit figures this year, that would be what, 10%?
That's in that ballpark.
In that ballpark, right? So how would your pickings be for this market, given it's a complex market? Your customer base is only 1% of the entire consuming auto consumer.
So I think one good thing about my mandate in India is I am not chasing volumes, because if you now chase volume is an outcome. Of course, we are leading the market, doing better. Sure. But I think for us as a brand, we have to ensure the brand continues to be desirable. As I said, this car and the brand is made out of dreams. A young kid coming out, and we all have been dreaming. I have been dreaming about this ever since I was a kid. And that dream is what we need to maintain. At a time when India's economic potential grows, with more people having money in the pocket, with more aspirations growing, you will definitely sell more cars. But if we go just after and chase the volume, we may start making mistakes. You know, my favorite example is the airline industry. And if you see the number of good airlines which have got shut just because they were chasing market share, I think that's not the way. We rather be dedicated to customer experience, good products. And of course, if volume comes as an outcome, that's great. At some point, we feel the India growth story will also gain even more momentum.
When?
I would be the richest person on earth if I can put a date. There are so many external factors. I also feel it's not only up to India. We are living in a globally connected world, and in that sense, you know, one market sneezes, we also may catch cold. We never, and that's the kind of geopolitical setup we are in, economic setup we are in. So very difficult to predict that. But if I look at all the others, you know, tax collections, stock market, real estate, GST collections, as I said earlier, and so all of them point in the right direction. With a younger India, with an India where, as I keep saying, diversity in the workforce, with more women participating in the workforce, I think that drives economic development. And a mindset to spend. And this has to triangulate. It is triangulating, but it will triangulate maybe a bit more faster as times come in.
Sure. So, okay, I got that. So, you're saying there's no particular strategy that you deploy to decide. Like, for instance, you've just launched your Maybach. You know, what was your thinking? So when you're bringing these international models and launching them here, obviously you think the market is ripe, right? What basis is that?
See, we are global Indians, you know. I keep telling my Stuttgart colleagues also, maybe Indians in India are driving, say, this, you know, 17,000, 20,000 cars, but there are much more Indians diaspora in the world. A lot of Indians use our cars in the US, UK, for example, in Middle East, Dubai, for example. So I think Indians are well traveled, very matured, well connected. So they know, you know, the EQS SUV Maybach, though we launched now, this car, we have been getting customer requests for the last 6 months. Ever since we did the global debut, they have been asking us, when are you getting this car, what's happening? So we are able to, with this, get a sense that yes, they want these cars, but then it's about the configuration. So, you know, our strategy. So let me say the product strategy here. We don't have any entry-level models. So we are one of the only luxury brands who don't have an entry-level cars. So every car we will have a petrol and a diesel version, but we won't have an entry-level car with maybe no sunroof, or maybe a smaller alloy wheels, or maybe we have compromised on. We generally try to equip whatever is possible. There are some equipments which our customers want, but we cannot get in India because of certification reasons, regulatory reasons. But in general, we are able to load the car, and that's the promise of the brand, that we would like to give a fully equipped car to the market, and that's again a strategy. So when you talk about Maybach now, we won't get a Maybach just with a logo, but we will ensure it has the first class seat, customers can configure it, they can personalize it, and those options are kept while ordering as well, so that customers have a choice to decide. Coming to marketing, if you have now core, we are coming to something quite big, which we have announced now, which is, the positioning for Maybach is beyond. So we would be doing very bespoke events with not more than 20 customers, closed door. Again, private events for this set of customers. And again, therefore, as I said, advertising for Maybach is not the way. We need to engage. We need to see what can we do. So every car launch, the team really looks into the possibilities, looks into the options, and then of course the engagement is the core, and pre is more important. So even before we launch the car, there are private screenings, private previews. They already get to see the car, they have already ordered, and they have made up their mind already in that sense. So that's the core of this segment. Once you launch the car, then they feel everybody has seen it. So I will also see it at one point of time.
Got it.
But what can you do prior?
Got it. So exclusivity here for this cohort is important. Yeah. Now coming to EV, because you've launched this, and obviously everybody is aggressively around the world trying to promote EV, including us in India. However, we've seen a slowdown of EVs across categories, and we've also seen customers not being that open because, they have this anxiety about the battery running out and, about the resale value, all of that. And I don't think those are being addressed. Also, the infrastructure has not been fully, is not in high momentum, I would say. So hence, while, players like yourselves in the top end and of course middle end and all of them are pushing it, there is this hesitancy to move to the EV space. Would you be in agreement with that, and how do you see the future?
So let me start with Mercedes-Benz in India, because that's the most, so last year my share of EV to my total sales was 2.5%, 2%. This year we are already at 5%. So I've almost doubled my share, and my penetration is going up. And that clearly shows that with new models coming up, more and more consumers are coming into EV.
But is this more a luxury top-end trend?
No, even if you see the total market, you see the number of launches in combustion engine and you see the number of launches in EV. EV, there are hardly launches. There is only one big player, credible player, who is really pushing EVs in the mass market. The others are all in the waiting. They are going to launch, they will come in, some have launched already. So in that sense, I think 25, 26 will be an inflection point where you can see 10, 20 EVs coming to the market, and when there are product offerings, consumer acceptance will change. EVs are expensive to start with.
Yes.
So no consumer that we have seen is ready to pay a premium for sustainability. The 5% of my customers, yes, who are buying, but others say the day it's cheaper or it's equal, I am ready to buy an EV. So that issue we have to solve, and thankfully in India the GST taxation is much lower on an EV compared to ICE. So I spoke about the EQS Maybach, the EV. Here the GST is only 5%, whereas in a combustion engine 48. So 1 crore expensive because that is 48% GST. So I am passing on the entire benefit of the government's GST to customer, so that there is faster adoption of EVs. So brands who do that internationally and in India, they are able to grow. Coming to India, apart from the price, there is charging, as you rightly said. We have set up a large charging network in India, but you see these cars, these do 600 kilometers of range. Now, how many times you travel more than 600 kilometers in the ownership of a car? 3 times, 4 times, for which we have enough sufficient charging infrastructure available across India. So I feel that's more as an excuse to say it's not there, because this car, a car by default is idle most of the time. If you see, know what I'm saying, it's either in the office or it's at home. Both the places you can have a gun and just charge it. And once you charge 500, 600 kilometers, so you never need to visit a fuel station.
You mean to say you can do it privately in your
home? I am using an EV now for the last 1.5 years, and I'm just enjoying it. For a brief period, there was a shortage. I had to shift to a combustion engine, and I came back because of the noise, because of the overall comfort in an EV. So once you get used to it, you get switched on. And last is the residual value. A lot of people have an apprehension, do I have to change batteries? Because they change batteries in all other devices. Absolutely. These cars, the battery is for the life. We give a warranty of 8 years. The cars continue up to the lifetime the car is designed. So you don't have to bother. But it's a lot of education. and only responsible manufacturers who really believe in sustainability. To be very honest, I keep saying this. I don't think any OEM makes a lot of money by selling EVs. But I think as responsible auto OEMs, we need to be clear that we invented the car, and if you want to really change the future of mobility, we need to shift to zero emission mobility. This is our goal. As you know, we have an internal slogan saying there is no luxury without sustainability, and therefore more so for luxury brands like us, it's important that we look into zero emission mobility and a sustainable future. And therefore, we have to drive this agenda. It takes time, it's painstakingly, we have to convince a lot of customers, but these beautiful cars that we have, you know, the EQS Maybach, it ticks all the boxes. It has a first class seats, it has a comfort, much quieter, much also less expensive compared to the combustion engine counterpart, thanks to the government support on the GST and others. So I think it's a compelling proposition. It's a matter of time. Now, whether can we put a date and a year? And again, answer is no. But we feel that with policymakers going hard on emissions, you know, health is a concern. Our kids deserve a better planet. A lot of people say it's very theoretical. Santosh, you are at a spiritual level saying about this. But I give them an example of COVID because you mentioned COVID. What changed in COVID? You know, our streets, you see the air was better, cleaner. Factories were working because most of our factories started after 2 weeks of gap, our factories as well. But what was missing was the cars on the road, the bikes on the road. And you could see the change in the air quality. You could hear the bird chirping. All those posts during COVID times that people started posting is a clear reflection that we are part of the problem. And we need to solve it together.
But look at us. The moment life came to normal, we are back to normal.
Now you give me the cheapest EV, you give me everything, then only. But I think our kids will challenge us. Because I feel they are much more sensitive to you know, to this mobility topic, to the emission topic, to the environment. Also, right?
Yes, but they're insensitive to cost because they don't have that need. Because
at this stage,
the previous generation has made enough wealth.
That
you
is
know
true.
what I mean?
That's also true. Large, especially metro cities, I see that favor that. Also, you know, culturally, we save a lot for the kids, and they know that there is an umbrella. When we were growing up, the umbrella was there, but it was not, you know, it was much thinner in that sense.
Make a career for yourself, right? Your parents were not going to fund you.
Yeah, and they wanted to, but could they afford it? Today, parents have earned and they save. Also, they want to take care of the kids. So that's again a cultural topic, more so in our market, I would say. But I think that the trends are clear, that there is a responsible society which is coming up, a more inclusive society coming up, more women in workforce. I keep saying this because that will drive economic development. And with all of this, I'm sure, I think the future for sustainable mobility and EVs is bright.
You talked about the new generation. The new generation also does not believe in ownership and believes in subscription or, you know, spend everything. Are you seeing any uptick in the subscription model at all?
Yeah, for me, 20% of my finance sales are in a product called Agility. In Agility, what we tell is the customer, it is done by financial services, our own NBFC.
Yeah.
What they do is you don't need to pay for the full price of the car. So if the cost of the car is 100 bucks, you only pay for 40. At the end of 3 years, you give the 60 back and we just hand over the key and we take care of it. And you pay for the 40 with a 10 rupees of down payment and a 50 bucks is transferred into EMI. So you can own a Mercedes-Benz, drive a Mercedes-Benz by paying just 50% of the value of the car. And that's something, as I said, 20% of our customer base today is getting into, because they feel, why should I pay for the full car price? I will anyway sell this car in 3 to 4 years, upgrade to a new Mercedes-Benz. So why should I now pay for the full car and own the asset? But so that's something also changing, and we are also seeing a good uptake.
Would you say in all your verticals that you've launched in your portfolio, your E-Class sedan is your hero?
Yeah, for sure. It's the largest selling sedan in India, luxury sedan. It's also the best model in our portfolio. Again, we went from the customer need. We were the first market in the world to have a right-hand drive, long wheelbase E-Class. We said that there's a lot of chauffeur being driven again on the weekdays. So how can we make the rear space even more comfortable? And that was a game changer. Today our market leadership is very clearly there in that segment and in overall. Because I think if you understand the consumer and these nuances, you can also create products and services based on these topics. It's not a one-time affair that you launch a product now and then you forget it. What can you do in the same car that you have sold it already to improve the customer experience?
Who is your next biggest star after the E-Class?
Well, then we have the GLS in the top end segment. I think the SUV, it's a very most loved SUV right now. A lot of customers wanting the top end GLS there, 7-seater. Again, large families, people have dogs, people have stuff, so they love that space behind as well to commute. So the GLS is also emerging as a very strong product in our portfolio.
A little bit about retail. I know that you have decided to kind of get into these luxury boutiques, smaller spaces instead of having large showrooms or, you know, garages, so to speak, on display. Any idea why you find a smaller luxury bespoke kind of opening, I think you've announced this 24, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Than, let's say, actual wanting to see the car, touch and feel before I buy. Is your consumer wired differently?
Yeah, firstly, they don't come to showrooms to buy. You know, we had luxury garages, I call them. Large showrooms, 10-car display. But then whom are you talking to?
And very high real estate.
Yeah, and very high real estate value as well. So for our customers, the car goes to their home or their office anyway. So they don't need to come. Most of them come to the showroom for the delivery experience because they still feel, let me take delivery from the showroom. There is a small pomp and show. They get their friends, families. So at that time, it has to be. The other time also when they come and walk into an outlet, we want to make them feel more cozier and not lost. Generally, when you walk into larger outlets, it's like a mall. You know, the feeling is a lot of cars standing around. There are, you know, a lot of people. And some of our hot cars, anyways, we don't have stock. We don't have availability. So no point in now having large real estate, keeping them empty when the cars and those models. Then we end up giving the push models, which is also not the right setup because I think a luxury outlet is also communicates brand. I need to keep my Maybachs, my AMGs, my cabriolets, and the customer also feels excited. And of course, he will buy the E-Class, but the E-Class can go to his home or office for his test drive, and it's always available even in the showroom in and around for him to check out the car. But in the outlet, we have more made it boutique, more warmer, more cozier. In fact, in the same outlet, it's not that the real estate has come down completely. Earlier, I used to have one consulting room. Now I have 3 consulting rooms because a customer, when he comes, they all want private consulting. They want some either barriers. We have these chain curtains, for example, in our in some of our outlets. We have the private consulting areas. So that's more cozier and remote than showing a lot of cars around and walking around the cars.
Fair enough, fair enough. So this is something you're definitely attempting,
yes.
right? And in terms of online, you know, digital presence, what's been the big shift there?
See, the biggest shift thanks to our model is the transparency in pricing because online offline pricing is now fully transparent. So customers don't need to really call a dealership for price. They can go online stores, check out all the options available. Sometimes some of the offers are currently not reflecting, but that's more of a technical issue. But in that sense, our idea is to have an omni-channel experience. You come to the showroom, go online, book a car, come back, take delivery of the car. It should be as seamless as possible, and you don't need to now, you know, do part online, part offline. Also, our financial services colleagues, they have actually digitized the entire journey, credit application, no forms, no written forms, everything is via OTP. So the entire credit process has become online and transparent. So it's just not the online website. I think 80% of cars are bought on finance. And how can we also now automate that journey and make it seamless without paper? And without, because today I think the Indian government, thanks to Aadhaar and you know, you have access, and if you are able to come up with the right setup, you are able to have as seamless journey as possible.
Sure. Before I let you go, Santosh, I really want to have the experience of you driving me around in, you know, what one calls the Benz infatuation, which we've all had since childhood.
Yeah, sure. Please, let's go and jump into the car.
Thank you for this lovely ride that we're doing. This is the EQS 580.
Yes.
Right?
This is the car I am using.
This is also a personal car.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just before I let you go and as we exit this beautiful plant, Santosh, 15 years, you know, in this company. Of course, more than that, cumulatively in the industry. Yeah. What have been the learnings? Because I know when you joined in 2009, it wasn't like Mercedes-Benz was was having a great run, and it's been a big turnaround to come and claim market leadership and to do as well as you're doing, given all the challenges we've seen in the last 2 decades or so. What would you say?
I think first and foremost, we have a great team in Mercedes-Benz India. You know, we are 30 years here. Some of the colleagues have been with us for the brand for many years. Of course, we have a lot of new colleagues joining. So the credit for success goes to the entire organization. There is one thing that we say internally: we all can take a bullet for the star. You know, that's a thing because everybody is so passionate about the brand. So my job is to continue that passion, to ensure people are still excited, and every day when they come into this factory gate, they are as excited to do something more for the brand to keep it shining. I think that's the key, I would say, mantra that I follow. Coming to the market, I think if you keep the customer in the center and then understand the market, Indian consumers, as I said, don't want to compromise. And at that sense, maybe in the first stint in India when we came with the W124, they were great cars, but maybe they were not the latest, you know, when it comes to the product offering. So we corrected that. We corrected that to an extent where we were the first in many aspects. We got the long wheelbase E-Class, first in India. This EQS, we are the only brand to produce the electric cars locally in India. So, you know, we took those big steps. We changed the retail model that we are doing. So I think we are not afraid to take risk, and that also really has paid back in rich dividends. Looking into the next couple of years, I think when you look at the market, it's quite promising there. But we cannot take it for granted. I keep saying that team that, you know, we are constantly challenged, and I think that's the best part of this market as well. It's not only our core players who challenge us, but even the automotive industry in India is quite matured when it comes to a lot of practices, lot of equipments, products, knowledge, and I think it's nice to compete in such a market. It's nice to be in this market and help the ecosystem to also grow in. So the future looks equally exciting, and yes, the 30 years has been really, I won't say a roller coaster ride, but a dream ride for Mercedes-Benz in India.
You've given me a lot of positives. Now you tell me, what are the obstacles and the hurdles for the luxury market and this particular sector in terms of growth? I know, you know, although you say that your long-term planning is now kind of redundant, and because everything is so volatile, right? Everybody is planning quarter se quarter tak kind of scenario. But one thing I must observe, you're a long-standing employee, and also hopefully a long-standing CEO, because that kind of you know, stability gives a brand also sustainability and stability, so that nobody comes in with their own agenda and, you know, checks out. So what are the big you know, landmark issues that this industry needs to tackle for your segment?
I think for us, you know, we continuously also are in dialogue with the government in terms of our contribution to the economy and to the society. You know, when you take only the 48,000 cars, you feel it's quite small compared to the overall automotive industry. But when you look at job creation, we alone in India have direct, indirect 20,000 plus jobs that we are doing. You know, we have a R&D setup in Bangalore, which has 10,000 people there. I am having a procurement center in Pune, where we have set up this team to procure goods from India for the world. So there is a lot that Mercedes-Benz is doing for India, and that's, I think, for us to tell the policymakers that we are not just a small player in the market, we are also wanting to contribute now in a much bigger way and participate in the growth of India. I think that's something, that narrative with the government we continue. What we look from them is continuity in policy. And, you know, we are fully committed to EV transformation, and that is to be supported by the government with a long-term view. So the GST today, I think we are one of the few markets with such a big differential on EV versus combustion engine taxation. I think this should continue for a couple of years, and there we feel the government is still not able to commit to us that next 5 years, 10 years, these policies will continue, you continue to invest, we will support this sector. And that's a collective request. Not only us, but also many players in the industry want this kind of a clarity from the government on long-term continuity and stability as such.
Well, on that note, Santosh, an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for giving me so much time and really spending time making me understand this space, and of course, in particular, the Mercedes-Benz brand, which is well known, and it's a desirable brand for most people, but how you keep it alive and desirable in people's brains and hearts. Thank you so much for that perspective.
Thanks, my pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
And all the very best.
Thank you.